This is a live in box session. This is a post CABG patient. Actually, this was not intended to be recorded for live. We had an actual live case that evening. So the camera was already set up in the cath lab. So I asked them to just record it to see what happens, just to see how the case goes. But then it turned out a little more dramatic than we expected. So this patient is already a, sick subset of patient, 66-year-old diabetic, CABG, diffusely diseased LAD. Lima is flowing, but LAD is diffusely diseased. RCA, CTO, it was not grafted originally because at that time probably the lesion was not significant. OM to SVG was flowing, and patient presented with pulmonary edema in 2019. First episode, proximal LAD disease, compromised septal flow, PCA to septal LAD, PCA to LAD to septal. Then he recovered, was planned, RCCTO was planned after a month, but then COVID hit and 2-3 years he was out. Then he again got admitted with an end-STEMI and pulmonary edema with severe LV dysfunction. This was his angiogram at that time. So you can see that the lima is flowing, but diffusely diseased vessel. Right side was the CTO. So this was the vessel that was treated originally in 2019. So he was put on medical management. Then after shifting to the CCU, he started having severe chest pain and ST depression. So we brought him back and stented his left main to LAD because originally I thought it was not significant, but I think the angiography induced some dissection in the left main. So he was asymptomatic. So after this, so I was about to shift him out. Again, they called me for hypotension. He was still on the table. So when we went back, he had acute stent thrombosis. So that was massaged for 5-10 minutes, and then we ballooned it. Luckily, he was still on the table. Put an IABP and ventilated him, then extubated the next day. I mean, it's something like a bad obstetric history. This guy has a terrible cardiac history. Then we took him up for the CTO. So he was again planned after 1 month, but then 5 days later he comes back with pulmonary edema and refractory pulmonary edema, unable to control with medications. So we took him up for a high-risk PCI. This was kind of an unplanned recording. So basically my plan was to initially go retrograde because the channels were very good and antegrade was not very promising. So the basic idea was to go retrograde, quickly finish the RCA procedure and then get out. So that was the only idea I had in mind. I had not planned for an antegrade. So it looked quite good for retrograde. So brought in the other catheter for a dual injection. So
Sir, any problem you should tell me. Whether you start feeling breathless, don't assume that it's got.
So the dual injection showed that there is a relatively long segment, but what happened after that, the moment I injected in both the vessels, he fibrillated. So
Fine cross, please.
this is all, just 2 injections, 1 injection simultaneously in both vessels.
There is a nice antegrade channel, retrograde channel. I don't think it is sensible to waste time trying to go antegrade.
So we had to shock him multiple times.
Give one here and one on top.
The audio is not
Give.
playing.
Shock again. Shock again.
Okay.
Give atropine, adre IV.
So we had
Olive
to
would be
shock him,
inside.
give adrenaline, atropine, all kinds of stuff. Okay, and
Start
this was
CPR.
like a short episode, about 5 minutes resuscitation, and he picked up.
Support வை கைக்கு support வை.
So after about 5 minutes of massage and supports were started, things settled down. So anyway, I pulled out the RCA catheter and decided not to inject simultaneously in both. Um, so the next. So to continue with the original plan of the retrograde CTO PCI, so I took a fine cross. You can see the fine cross inside the left main, and wired into the PDA, and that was quite straightforward.
Same view, bro.
So I had the wire in the PDA and tracked the fine cross to the PDA. So this time I just wanted to see how far the PDA fills into the RCA, because I really did not have much, because could not take cranial injection or a RAO injection in the dual injection.
So the first cardiac arrest is probably because of though it was a side hole sitting in the left main, it was not adequate. I need more supports. Madam, if you think.
So took an injection in the microcatheter to see the distal cap.
A PLV or pressure is going down. You have to pull out.
And this time,
Sheath kuda, IABP sheath. Oh God. Oh.
sorry.
You have to pull
After
out.
this injection, again he fibrillated.
Give push on artery.
Okay, so all these dramatics were going on. So I removed the RCA guide catheter and put an intra-aortic balloon, because his pressure was like some 60 or 70. So this was after that injection, again multiple shocks. So I pulled out the left guide also. And at this point, we were actually stuck, because not sure what to do. Because this guy is not going to get better unless you open up the RCA. All the other vessels, so whatever is available is flowing. So I decided to go antegrade, because the only thing is without much visualization from the contralateral side, because I had put an IABP on the other line. We have an excellent resuscitation team in the cath lab because they get used to it. Then he was intubated. But the beauty about this patient is every time something happens, he picks up. The moment you do what is required, he will come back. Uh, so then the RCA antegrade again became a nightmare because, first of all, it was extremely calcified, and the RCA guide wouldn't sit there properly. So I kind of lost the guide multiple times, lost the wire. Um, so from this position, you can see that multiple times the wire would have come out. So first, initially I taken a Corsair XS Pro. The only regret I have at this point is I should have taken a radial access to see the retrograde, but to see the distal RCA, but it didn't strike me at that point to take another access. We're again going in with the fine cross because that Corsair was damaged by the calcium. So these are again lost the wire because every time I push, the whole thing would come out. And there was not a great point to anchor there. Then again took a caravel this time. So after crossing that RV branch, we were able to see some kind of distal filling. So this was again an attempt because the wire came out. I think this was Fielder FC this time. Okay, let me show you the real angiograms instead of that. So after multiple times losing the wire, finally the wire I thought was in PDA, not absolutely sure, but looked almost like PDA and some filling was seen. So I advanced the microcatheter there. And exchanged it for a Grand Slam wire. And now you can see that it is in PDA. After I had pushed the microcatheter one round and brought it back, I was quite sure it was in PDA. So then, serial balloon dilatation and serial stenting. So this was the final result, though the PDA didn't look great actually at that point. Uh, he was managed in this ICU for 3 days, discharged on day 6. He is still on follow-up actually. At 6 months, his LV had improved, no heart failure. So should have taken a third access or at least a Lima injection, and before pushing the microcatheter. So the best lesson learned, you know, from this case is like all is well that ends well, and a doctor saves a patient who's destined not to die.
Thank you.